dear senior high school learners. Today is another journey of learning in our subject, which is reading and writing. I am teacher Faye and we will discuss about context of text development, hypertext versus intertext. Nowadays, many people, especially students, depend so much in the information on the internet. In just few clicks, information for education, socialization, and even for entertainment are easy to search and retrieve. This video will help you understand the meaning of context and text development. It will also teach you to obtain information through hypertext and intertext. Finally, this video will allow you to apply intertext and hypertext strategies in reading resources for an output. What is context? It is defined as the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea. In other words, it is the why behind the actions that people take. What is text development? Do you still remember your lesson in junior high school about the forms of essays? Remember descriptive, narrative, expository, and argumentative essay? They are developed in several ways, and each form has its own way of developing the text. But here are the essentials that you need to remember. First is the purpose. You must need to know the reason why you are writing the text and what you expect to achieve from your reader. Is it to make them laugh, to convince them to take action, to let them understand about something, or to educate them? To sum it up, it must have an objective. Next is the audience. Always know your target audience. Identifying your target audience will help you adjust the content, your use of language, and even the style of your presentation. So ask first yourself, is it for the youth? Is it for adults? Is it for experts? Is it for novices? And lastly, the content and meaning. Apart from the two key points mentioned, the most important thing to consider is the content and meaning, since it is the main reason why your audience read your work. Always remember that your work needs to have substance. Do you still remember when your teacher in English in junior high school asked you to write an essay? How did you look for references? What are your references? What sources did you use as reference for reading materials for your essay assignment? Have you heard of the word intertextuality before? What is intertext? Intertextuality is when writers borrow from previous text. Their work acquires layers of meaning. In addition, when a text is read in the light of another text, all the assumptions and effects of the other text give a new meaning and influence the way of interpreting the original text. According to Nordquist 2020, intertextuality refers to the interdependence of text in relation to one another, as well as to the culture at large, to produce meaning. Also, intertextuality underlines that writings must be comprehended in relation to other texts. In addition, present-day writings are accepted to have been founded on, or if nothing else, propelled by already published literature. From the style to the substance, to the specific circumstance, and so forth. An intertextual approach in reading assumes a fundamental job in improving message transmission and message gathering or reception. This process activates your earlier information or prior knowledge as you attempt to decide the message transmitted through the text. Finally, you will discover the importance of this prior knowledge acquired according to their content's introduction with other content. And now, go over the succeeding examples and figure out how intertextuality was used. First, intertextuality in printed materials like newspaper. Do you read newspaper? Are you familiar of its editorial page or section? Try to look at these examples. Describe the cartoon. What images do you see? What does the text say? What does it add to the image? What looks familiar in the cartoon? Now, look at the bigger picture. What past and/or present event is shown here? What do you think is the artist trying to say? Editorial cartoon in tabloids and broadsheets is an illustration or comic strip containing a political or social message that usually relates to current events or personalities. The illustration on COVID-19 pandemic in the picture represents health concern that widely affects the countries around the globe nowadays. These cartoons embedded intertext through the use of a visual and verbal vocabulary that is familiar to readers to produce meaning of the issue represented. It very well may be understood from the illustration that the obligation and responsibility in ensuring better solution so as to stop the spread of the virus is not constrained to a particular sector of the government, but of each member of the general public. Next is the intertextuality in film. Look at the picture. Have you seen the two movies in the posters presented? Do they have the same title? What can you say about their posters? Do the two posters look almost the same? As shown in both posters, they both have very similar characteristics. The characters in the same position, the title of both movies are placed in the same position in the bottom, right, and the iconic spaceship of the Star Wars in position in the same place. The Family Guy used intertextuality on Star Wars in one of their episodes. However, they can change slightly to suit the program's audience with the same story. The next one is the intertextuality in advertising. Look at the ad presented. What product is being advertised? What is the product for? What visual image or symbol is used to represent the product? Why do you think the advertiser used this visual image or symbol? Intertextuality is a fundamental part in the advertising text, where at least two of the linguistic visual and oral writings supplement each other for a better comprehension of the message by the reader. In addition, these references are made to influence the reader and add layers to depth to a text based on the reader's prior knowledge and understanding. In the sample ad, the advertiser uses the image of Snow White, a fictional character often described as the fairest in the land, for a beauty product, which is formulated to instantly whiten the skin and build youthful skin in the shortest time. In short, a fair skin like Snow White. In this manner, the referent as intended by the author is recognizable to the reader. There are kinds of intertextuality. First is retelling. Intertextuality may be the retelling or writing of an old story in modern context. Example is The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. William Golding, in his novel Lord of the Flies, based the story implicitly from Treasure Island, already written by Robert Louis Stevenson. However, Golding applied the concept of adventures which young boys love to do in the isolated island they were stranded on. He, however, changes the narrative into a cautious tale rejecting glorified stories of Stevenson concerning exploration and swashbuckling. Instead, Golding based his novel in bitter realism by portraying negative implications of savagery and fighting that could take control of human heart because characters lost the idea of civilization. Number 2 is allusion. Allusion is the reference to another text. It can also be a reference to a person, place, or event. The audience or the reader has to make the connection. Example, allusion in Shakespeare's Hamlet. In this example, from Act 3, Scene 4 of Shakespeare's Hamlet, Prince Hamlet alludes to several of the Greek and Roman gods while describing a portrait of his late father. See what a grade was seated on his brow. Hyperion curls the front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars to threaten and command. Instead of describing his father's appearance and personality outright, Hamlet uses allusion to communicate more poetically. His father has the god Hyperion's curly hair, the strong forehead of Jove, also known as Jupiter or Zeus, and the commanding presence of Mars, the god of war. As Shakespeare's audience would have been familiar with the physical appearance of these gods as depicted in paintings, as well as their backstories, these allusions invoke a whole range of images, stories, and historical periods, the Greek and Roman empires most notably. These allusions add to the descriptive power of the passage, and they also make Hamlet's father seem powerful and noble by describing him as a composite of several major deities and associating him with a lineage of historical power. The third kind is quotation. It is a segment or fragment of text in another text. It is the repeated use of units of any other form of expression, especially parts of artistic work. Here is an example of quotation. Moreover, self-efficacy acts as mediation on the influence of other variables that predict academic achievement, which is to say that it acts as a filter between variables such as previous achievement and mental ability on academic achievement. Pajares and Shank, 2001. This fragment of text is used in an academic writing which came from authors cited, such as Pajares and Shank, year 2001. Here are another examples. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. This is by Shakespeare in Hamlet. This is another way of saying it is our mind that judges whether something is good or bad, but in truth, there is no good or bad. Another example, it's not enough to speak, but to speak true. This is one way of saying, do not talk. It is more important that when you do speak, you tell the truth. By Shakespeare in Midsummer Night's Dream. The next kind is pastiche. It is a literary piece that imitates a famous literary work by another writer. It is generally employed to imitate a piece of literary work light-heartedly, but in a respectful manner. Example of pastiche, The Traveler by Dave McClure. Dave McClure's poem, The Traveler, is a comical imitation written after Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven. Look at McClure's opening stanza. Long ago, upon a hilltop, let me finish, then I will stop. I spied a curious traveler, where no traveler was before. As I raised an arm in greeting all at once, it took to beating at the air like one entreating passing boats to come ashore, like a castaway repeating empty movements from the shore, or an overeager roar. It keenly imitates the arrangement of words used by Poe in the original poem. Likewise, it echoes the same rhyming scheme. Read the opening lines from Poe's The Raven for a better comparison. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. The only remarkable difference between the two poems that we can recognize is the serious tone of the original poem contrasts the humorous tone of the imitation. And now, we will compare intertext to hypertext. Let's move on to hypertext. For sure, you are familiar with some of the technological advancement nowadays. Choose those that you are currently using, such as tablet, laptop, desktop computer, smartphone. Perhaps you have chosen most of these. If you did and you read text through the said gadgets, you may have noticed that some web pages have text that are normally underlined in blue color. What is hypertext? Hypertext is simply a non-linear way of presenting information. Rather than reading or learning about things in the order that an author or editor or publisher sets out for us, readers of hypertext could access files in web pages or other electronic documents by simply clicking on links within particular files or web pages. This means that the user may follow their own path, create their own order, their own meaning out of the material. What makes hypertext one of a kind is the speed at which you can move to various text or images, audio, video clip, and different types of media output. Take a look with these examples. As you noticed, all the examples are underlined in blue color. There are reasons why is it advantageous to use hypertext in reading. First, we learn better associatively. That is, we are better able to figure out material if we have the freedom to move at our own pace. Select the order in which you read the text and focus on information that is relevant to our background and interest. Second, already digitized. The greater part of the printed literary materials are now in the form of electronic documents. Therefore, you can just download a portable document format or PDF file of a reading material. Third, simultaneous. It is simpler to have numerous windows accessible all the while. The fourth one, multiple paths to inquire and explore. Hypertext is a totally different way of introducing information than the typical linear structure. Reading hypertext is much the same as exploration. Readers have the chance to read in great profundity and will ideally find well-composed hypertext more interesting than even the most enthusiastic notes. The fifth one, non-linear information structure. Hypertext take into consideration for a non-linear movement within a document with a choice of quickly returning to where you started. And the last one is critical thinking. Since you will be allowed to navigate information by exploring the connections provided, hypertext will allow you to analyze information from multiple perspectives. Information gathered from various sources engages you in critical thinking as you find new information, make choices, and problem solve your own route through the topic being studied. I'm glad that this video will help you now to identify the context in which a text was developed through hypertext and intertext. Thank you for watching. Until next time.